Thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining the session. My name is Sun Shin. I'm from NVIDIA, and uh, I'm presenting together with my colleague Ananta. We work together on cloud gaming. So let's start. About the agenda, we are going to share what is cloud gaming and what is the aspect for the web, and about the challenges we have faced in recent years, and lastly, the next step. So for the cloud gaming, which is a very simplified view of the cloud gaming, uh, it's very simple way of explaining. We have a client like a PC, which generate the event for making the gaming, controlling the gaming. So the game engine is located on the cloud side. Also, there is a video encoder which can capture the video from the game engine and to share the video uh, frame to the client. Uh, so that's the client again get the control when the decode video frame is arrived on the client side and display the video. That is the basic logic of the cloud gaming. And we don't need any console or very fancy hardware for making high performance graphics. If you have a high performance resources on cloud side. That is the benefit of the cloud gaming. And there's one thing unique on the cloud gaming compared to other video conferencing. This is very unique measure of measuring the way of measuring the latency. We call click to pixel latency compared to glass latency, which is more like highlight what is the cloud gaming, because we don't need a two-way bidirectional video streaming. And we just need a one single unidirectional video. So we measure the click to pixel latency, which is more proper for the cloud gaming. So that is one thing unique for the cloud gaming compared to the video streaming. And the next one is about what is more about the web related things. The more regarding the web, like I said, the web is originally provided the service for the video conferencing, which is quite matched with what cloud gaming want, which is low latency video streaming. But most of the web artists' main focus is bi-directional video playback. So the reason why we put, actually I made this a requirement. I put this requirement 36 on the WebRTC side, because most of the requirement from the WebRTC side assume that there is camera and video microphone permission is granted by the user, but which is not in the video like cloud gaming case. Also, the problem is most of the recent changes on the browser is for security or user protection and fingerprint surfaces. They are all about preventing the data from the network or the user agent. And most of the data can be accessible when user agree to provide. And they map this permission like microphone and camera. But in our case, if we map all the permission in those kind of resources, you don't get any data. So that's the minimum feature I request, I ask. There's another use case like video gaming, cloud gaming. We may not need a video or microphone or camera permission. So that is the minimum requirement we need to have. Another one is, like I said, we need a low latency video streaming. That's why we may rely on the hardware capability, like GPU acceleration. So that is another requirement specific to the cloud gaming. And this is about what we are based on. We are definitely based on the WebRTC implementation. Right now, we are focusing on congestion control improvement by L4S, which is more RTC, IETF spec to reduce the latency and make more scalable throughput. So that is more WebRTC working group things, but we still highly relying on the web application, which means we still relying on major part of the Chrome browser, like video decoding and software fallback or HDR, or those kind of things. We are highly relying on the current media capability of the browser. And another one is about the user input. So which is more critical recent days because there are more and more security or user protection on this area. So I just want to highlight that why we need this, why we need the pointer lock, why we need a keyboard lock. This is very critical or crucial requirement for the video like gaming implementation. Without this, we cannot go over the boundary of the window. The pointer lock is kind of way to make more flexibility on controlling the input event so that the gamer just feel like this is game, not just browser window. So that is required. Also, we can add more unadjusted pointer event by having unadjusted mode on the pointer lock. So we can get rid of all the acceleration by the operating system, which we need. We just need a low data of the pointer. That is the goal of pointer lock API. Also, the keyboard lock API will be the similar way. We need all the keyboard from the keyboard, all the keys from the keyboard, especially escape key. When user press escape, most of the browser will go outside of the full screen mode, which is really bad experiences. Also, most of the game use escape key for their own control. So we need a keyboard lock API, but keyboard lock is quite limited availability at this time. So we need to keep working on to having these features availability be more wider adopted. So that's another our effort to make it happening. But this is the feature based we are highly relying on as of today. So I'm going to share some video capture of. I just want to try to the live demo, but the network is not so powerful. So after the presentation, if you want, anyone want to use the GeForce Now Gaming, I'm ready. So just come to me and play with me. But this is recorded version.
Which one?
This one? Okay. Okay, this is a video capture of our GeForce Now Gaming. As you can see, it's just a web app, and you can select the video resolution, like it's like 2K, 4K to QHD to 4K, but this device does support to not 2K, 3K, QHD. And this is the actual playback of the video cloud gaming. This part is the most important things. Last time at TPAC, we discussed about lots of user allowance for playing the video game. So yeah, this is the first pop-up to allow or disallow the microphone. That is one. And another one is copy paste. And if we want to use the keyboard and mouse lock, we have to have this pop-up again. So this is quite disrupting the experiences. Even there is just 3 click. It might be not that bad, but still it makes user confusing. Also, the location of the pop-up is quite different. One is on top, another one is on the middle of the screen. So, but still, it works, but not that kind of smooth user experiences. But this is just a demo of the cloud gaming. So let me just explain more about the current video playback.
Mouse.
No, this is pointer lock again. There are more pointer lock code during the scene changes. So this is the cloud gaming. I just use the Xbox Forza game. For someone who may not know about the relationship between NVIDIA and Microsoft, we are not only the competitor, we are the collaborator. We share the game all together. So we want to make cloud gaming better, not just fight each other. So this is good game and I like it. And the graphics is perfect. So this is the one demo file for the playback. So also we have a like 120 frame rate. Sorry about the stat is quite small letter, but it's 120. Also the latency, I just played last night at home. It's round trip latency is about 20 milliseconds. Also the decode time is 5 milliseconds. So it's quite performant. Also, this is another interesting thing. This is the animation made by the game. And this animation looks less clear. Right now, the graphic performance of real life rendering is much better than pre-recorded video file. So this is quite interesting from my perspective. So this is real game and much more clear, much more better and smooth. Okay. I will not go that much far. Okay, so now it's more on serious part than entertaining part. So we have some challenges to provide the cloud gaming on the web. One thing we faced last time was M127 pointer lock crash, which is quite impactful. Every cloud gaming service provider got lots of angry Reddit posts just one day. End of July, we saw this post across all the cloud gaming. All tab just gone. It's like crashing the browser process compared to the web process. So the users more kind of upset because it make all the tab is just gone. Also, even worse, just mouse click make this browser got crashed. So nothing special. All the cloud gaming relying on the pointer lock, and when we click the Windows, it's just gone.
Sorry, how long was that outage for? How quickly was it addressed?
You mean outage? I think we just got the Reddit post So after maybe 4-5 hours,
4 or 5 hours.
yeah,
Okay.
I was
Still, I'm sorry, that shouldn't happen.
yeah. I'm trying to go home, but I got this ready post, and then I stay all night to fix this problem. Not fixing, just identifying.
So I assume that turned into a, yeah.
Yeah. So there is a root cause. We know what happened, why it happened, and even we try to find out what is the root cause. The Chrome team already fixed it, but 128, we have to wait 1 more month to be landed on the new version. So we got a 1 month of angry customer ready post. So we don't want to do that.
Wait, you weren't able to get a,
Yeah, why couldn't this get merged?
That's good question. This is the one we work together with the Chrome team, we reported. There is a lot of crash. Please merge to 127. Just 3 days after we identify, we reported to the Chrome team and got merged in 3 days. But still 3 days. Also for releasing 1 or 2 more days.
Yep.
Totally 5 days of crash. Every cloud gaming all at once, all tech gone. So this is quite critical and serious problem.
The interesting part is it's not reached, triggering it, and we thought
Oh,
not
was it not
reached.
reached?
It's not reached, should be debug builds only, but I don't know why it's
Yeah,
crashing.
So I'm going to talk about that a little bit tomorrow. I've got a whole session on reliability. We have a bunch of lessons that we learned.
Okay, but it fixed. We are happy. We thanks for the Chrome team's support on this.
We should do
I
better.
think, yeah, I think there's something to learn here about getting issues
Mhm.
triaged quickly. Like, but this is a case where like we were trying to clean up a whole bunch of tech debt at once involving like moving not reached to be fatal, which is the right thing to do. But like that probably broke a lot of things all at once. But there's a more general question of like if you have a site using a feature, we launch a new Chrome version, and using that feature just always crashes. Like making sure that gets like
this repro on beta, your canary?
I would assume so. Right? Happen on beta. It's just we don't have enough users.
Yeah. It must have crashed in beta.
I'm trying to find, do you have the bug number handy? I'm
Do it now.
I don't wanna. Yeah, I don't wanna highlight the bug number.
we've had similar problems happen when there's a API with relatively low usage.
Yeah.
It will see it in beta, but the numbers won't be high enough, and then it gets like it's hard to tell the difference between this is a rare crash, and so it's like below the threshold of an emergency, and this is a rare crash because this is beta channel that doesn't have that many users and an API that is like only used by some particular segment of user population, and then suddenly you hit disable, and it's fine or it's an emergency. Trying to figure out the difference between those two situations is an ongoing challenge.
We saw that for this particular not reach thing. We've seen it in other cases. I didn't know about this one, so this is one more on the, I'd forgotten maybe, but we're doing a post-mortem with a big review. Yeah,
So
next
isn't
couple of
that
weeks.
supposed to be only triggered during debug weeks?
No, I mean, we intentionally moved not reach to be fatal at runtime because there's a number of reasons, and we've made mistakes in doing it that we're learning from. But we are convinced that will lead to a higher quality product in the long run, right? Because if your choice is, do you want to fail quickly or fail slowly, right? And fail slowly means security issues, data corruption, people ignoring failures.
It's not slowly. It's fail quickly or fail in a weird and hard to predict way later.
Yeah.
Which is
But still,
If you follow that bug trail, I think the Chrome team was aware of the issue, but it was impacting fewer users. And the understanding initially was it's because of some experiment which was enabled. But the interesting part about this crash is your browser window should never see non-client mouse messages.
yeah.
Something changed in Chrome which sends non-client messages, and the code which is converting that to web events is doing the right thing. It doesn't know how to handle non-client messages.
Yeah.
So we hacked around it by converting that to web mouse event, which may trigger other problems because the non-client messages come in screen coordinates,
Mhm.
and this regular messages come in client coordinates.
Right.
So you may end up with obscure coordinates which won't work in the web.
Yeah.
So, but in any case, the bug is fixed, but looks like the symptom is still alive
Okay.
somewhere.
Okay. we have one more issue. So let's go. That 131 keyboard lock mouse user prompt announced. And originally it announced for 130, not 131. And we just noticed the blog post. It's about 1 month left. And for the cloud gaming required some UX changes because, like I said, if user click never allowed, it doesn't control any UI. We need to do something. We need to make some UX changes. We need to guide the customer. We need to make our own knowledge base. But 1 month wasn't too long, wasn't enough. So I asked Rick Bias, we need more time. And luckily we got the 131. So 1 month, we have enough time, like 1 month, 1 more month. So after that, we evaluate this new feature and investigate, test with our NVIDIA QA team. And we figured out there are 2 bugs. And we identified and we suggested and we made a fix. So this is kind of good collaboration with Chrome team and for the content providers. So we always willing to work together. We always willing to make a contribution, and we just don't want to break our service. We just don't want to break user experiences. So that's one thing I think is good experience on collaboration, and now it's good to go. So I believe what M131 will be released as a beta next week. So I think it is good for us as of today, but we'll see. We'll keep monitoring the situation. But this is quite a big changes because we haven't seen this pop up for almost from the beginning. This is quite a new changes, especially for the user protection. Now we understand, but this is quite a work for the gaming. So
maybe in general, I'll repeat what I've told you in private, which is like in general, when we make a change like this for user protection, you should expect that that we're able to respond very quickly in the case of any bugs, right? This is one we have under Finch control. So like if we discover that there's a bug at the last minute, we can push out an update that doesn't require rebuilding Chrome, right? So, you know, it's like sometimes we've got to do these things that are a little risky that could, like this is one where we know of active attacks where like there are malicious websites out there tricking people into thinking that their computer has a virus and causing them to pay money for tech support scams and stuff like this. So we got to do something to improve it, but it's not acceptable to break legitimate use cases. And so like, thank you for the collaboration. It's very good.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the last one is what we would like to discuss today is how we can make it better. So we know that this will not be the last. So there will be more and more security enforcement, security enhancement, more prompt will be shown off. The one what we want discuss is we always want to get early notification from the Chrome team, and we also want to make it better feature for the release. So that's one thing I would like to ask the Chrome team.
Rick, did we do a PSA for the pointer lock permissions changes?
Yeah, and you saw it, right? Like there was an announcement about it, and you saw that. So that was a positive thing.
But we only gave people a month.
It was a little late. The blink intent wasn't as early as it could have been. So I think we can always strive to put intents out as early as possible and not just when we're ready to ship. Another comment I would encourage it is effort necessary. However, NVIDIA trying to actively test on early branches will expose any changes sooner. So ideally, there's some regular testing and development being done. So hopefully developers are on at least the dev channel. It's not an answer for everything, but it's a good catch-all, right? So we can make requests and we can try to get everyone who was to communicate to any party. But that's hard. You're trying to reach the thousands of people and get them to reliably communicate to you.
Yeah.
Which is always hard. And the flip side is that we can always be having testing and just making sure that the features we care about are functioning on the early builds of Chrome.
I would say testing and telemetry, right? Like the thing that's most scalable that we found in these environments is where, you know, you're not relying on some human to do communication. I mean, we try to do that too. And even tests, you know, the best case is, you know, one of the most impactful things that we've changed over the last couple of years is we have this early stable channel where we push stable out. I think it's 1 or 2 a week before we do stable, we push out to 1% of Chrome users, right? So that means if your telemetry is able to notice, like, you know, 1% of your users are having a problem, right? I mean, and you can, as long, like you should be, whatever logs you're collecting from the wild, you should be subdividing it by Chrome version. Because then if you see, oh, you know, when we look at, you know, Chrome 131 just got to 1% of users, and we see a spike in the fraction of users that are having a certain issue, right? You can file that as a bug to us, and we can act on it within that week before it gets to 100% of users. So even if like dev channel and beta channel are great, but it's only taking us so far because most average users won't install those channels. But 1% stable can be, we found this with other big companies, that the pre-stable period is a wonderful opportunity to identify anomalies in your telemetry that we can then act on quickly before it gets to 100% of users.
Sure. That's definitely needed, but a little bit what we want is to get the more earlier detection of new features, so that our team and
you can watch the commit logs if you want. So there you put everything to commit.
Another
we
thing.
can do that.
Slightly more helpfully, there's an engineer at Microsoft, actually, I think, who put this really, really well, which is that it'd be really great when you have these kinds of problems if you had a time machine, that you could go forward in time and see like what problems you're going to have in the future. And we do have that for Chrome. Like that is what dev channel and beta channel are for. Like if all of your QA resources, if you make sure everyone doing testing and development is running at least beta channel, then they will know at least 2 weeks, if not 4 weeks, depends on exactly timelines, what the end user experience will be like in the future. And you will also, you'll catch all sorts of things. You'll catch performance regressions. You'll catch bugs, like, you know, like Rick said, right? Like this isn't absolving us of having to making sure we have good test coverage. Like any bug that you find, we should turn into test coverage for us. But it absolutely will help prevent surprises, because none of this stuff should be surprises. Sometimes Finch rollouts mess that up, right? It's sometimes Finch can make it harder to see stuff in beta, but
James first.
I was going to say one thing that might be helpful, which isn't perfect, but on chromestatus.com, we do publish our roadmap that goes quite a bit into the future. And the data is not perfect, so there may be errors there. But like if there was an intent for this, you likely would have seen it in the roadmap before the intent even was sent out. It could have been on your radar, and that might help in some cases.
I have one follow-up. Just I think Vince's idea of testing with the earlier release channels is what we tell every customer that runs into a problem on stable. Additionally, if there's any automation you can put in place to the GeForce Now service, where you can synthesize fake clicks and you know that it's in roughly the right place to start up one of the games, get it running, and actually make sure that it works, you know, capture a golden image and know that actually it launched successfully, then you could put that on your service and make the auto updates of Chrome on the test machines, and then you never have to touch it again. And the minute that the test starts failing, you know you broke something or something is no longer compatible.
Actually, we have like early detection regression system kind of things, but these two issues is more like enabled. All these features, all two issues, our detection system couldn't catch it because it's more or runtime switch, turning on and off.
And we have a system in place where Sun has a server where he pulls down Chromium bits every night, builds them, and then runs our test suite. The thing is, in those builds, the flag for the prompt is not turned on.
Yeah.
So we can't catch it. So
Wait,
only
why not?
way you can catch
Yes,
it is,
actually,
I think now it is, but in month
Yeah.
one it will be. But, and the other one, the pointer lock crash one, that's a special case where you're clicking outside the border of the window. So unless your test accommodates that, it's a regression test. So we did that, but it's more of a case which we didn't expect to hit in the wild, but yes. So we are doing that, and I think testing with canary and dev channels is probably a good idea going forward.
Anything enabled by Finch is problematic to test. There's a combinatoric explosion. So there's an attempt to turn on the stuff that's about to ship in Chrome in field trial config.json, whatever, testing config.json, so that even Chromium builds get those flags turned on. But our own team finds tons of issues in the field where experiment got turned on, we didn't know about it. And then it actually did break something, and it wasn't caught even with early release channel testing. So we should really be careful about turning on those Finch experiments on Canary, on beta, before, stable, so that if somebody's testing with them, that's the behavior that you're going to see on stable.
In particular, before we do have a rule that before we get to 100%, it's got to be on track by default. I know occasionally that's.
I think what's happening here is there might be some cases where that process either, where that process unintentionally doesn't work the way that's supposed to. Things like, things like, for example, sometimes Finch trials are created that will roll out before, like they will wait to start rolling out until the stable is released. So then you don't get any beta coverage because,
That's always a mistake. Yeah, these are all things, to
Yeah.
be honest, the big picture here is we're still learning how to do more A/B tests rather than like we used to do everything just in the tree, right? And then rely on the channels. And increasingly we're doing things more by A/B tests, in part because it lets us turn them on off instantly when they're broken. But we have a lot of work to do still to build up all our processes, maturity around that. And so very much appreciate feedback on that. We can do better.
And all of it's increasing coverage. Isn't there a Chrome switch where you can turn on the field trial testing config with the release build?
Yeah.
I don't know if you folks are aware of that, but like you might be missing that coverage now. And if you run both the default and with that, you might catch some of these things that are about to roll out with Finch. Not perfect if someone didn't add it or didn't add the exact config that exposes the bug. Maybe not, but. And then just one other thought on the interop thing. Permissions are always challenging because of interop is more about web exposed behaviors, and when you get into permissions, UX, and heuristics and things, it's not necessarily something that's usually covered. I don't know if the Chrome folks working on permissions UX have like a good channel for site feedback or ideas about like, I don't know, maybe there should be some different UX if your site engagement score is high enough, or if there's enough history of you saying yes, pointer lock and keyboard lock are fine. Maybe after 5 or 10 times, you can get a smoother experience.
I can give you the exact Slack channel for that one.
But yeah, I think that'd be like helpful for these folks. Like, no, just they have ideas. Like maybe they're good, maybe they're too prone to abuse, but good to make sure they're
We've
getting brought up.
asked about how there might be more safe harbor for sort of install time grouped permissions. So if you make your set of PWA, maybe we can at install time present users with a grouping of permissions that they could maybe agree to together. I mean, I see Howard looking at me in horror.
We had an explainer up about that,
Yeah.
and we got pushback because Android had moved away from that because it was confusing users at install time.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if there's ways we can create more of safe harbor for user intent that maybe won't grow.
One other thing I would say in terms of what else, I love that you're engaging in the Chromium community, that you're here, right? I hope one thing, I'm just looking through this history. First of all, I did know about this. I'm sorry, I forgot. I commented on the bug long after the fact. But one of the things that went wrong in that case is the bug was filed before it was a fatal issue. And so there was already a bug saying this was hit sometimes. But that was a P2 bug. It was just a notification, right? And then when it got upgraded to be fatal, nobody upgraded the bug from a P2. So it didn't hit our triggers for oh, this is a major incident. right? And then all these new bugs came in and they all got resolved as duplicate against this P2 bug, right? So like the thing I did so that's a case where, I mean, this is stuff we can all work out together, but that's something where I hope you would feel empowered to change the priority of that bug to P0. Right? To like, because then that triggers like our release manager starts seeing it.
Oh.
There's a bunch of stuff here. I'll talk about more of this tomorrow. We need to improve some of our documentation about this. There's different labels that have different impact, but you know, like working together on the bug discipline is one of the things that I think can help. And being part of the Chromium project and active participant, I think is exactly, you know,
That's what we are trying to do.
yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
So can this also be fixed on the organizer level? So when you do P0 into P2, this bumps the priority?
Maybe.
Or at least we could be like,
Yeah.
Yeah, warning.
I mean, every time somebody duped it, they should have thought about it too. Like, it's easy for these things to go missing. You know, and luckily the right thing still happened. People still jumped on it and they merged the fix quickly, even though it was marked too. So you know, it's not like it got ignored completely, but.
I have a kind of out of topic question. Have you folks measured end-to-end latency in key areas in Chromium which could be improved? And do you need help with tracking the input all the way through the output so you would know which input resulted in which frame so you can actually measure things end-to-end, or do you have ways to get around this and still measure end-to-end latency?
I think one place where we see the most impact is WebRTC player has some heuristics by which it figures out that the decoder, whichever decoder you're using, is taking too long, and it miraculously drops it to software decoding. And that is where we see when software decoding is FFmpeg, and the users see terrible experience when you're using FFmpeg. And this happens in the middle of the session. And so if your FPS is 60 or 120, it's just too laggy. It's very hard to play the game. And what we find is 30 FPS works better for FFmpeg. So whenever those things are happening, it'll be good if WebRTC can communicate that on the client to the WebRTC server. That way it can drop down the resolution and anything else to give a better experience to the client.
I thought there was an intent.
That is one, sorry?
I thought there was an intent that just went across for notifications for something along those lines.
I think that was taken out because of too many notifications. I remember, I think Sun mentioned that it was there in the past, but then it got taken out or something like
Yes,
you mentioned.
yeah, WebRTC working group removed the permission to get the software fallback and decoder information unless there is user consent. And they bind that consent with microphone and video camera. So we lost that kind of a way to look at the session. Or
Does this happen on all platforms, or?
yeah, every platform relying on the WebRTC.
And does like request video frame callback, does that give you a signal to say that you're dropping frames and so you can switch to a lower frame rate?
We are trying to do some kind of our estimation, but we want to get a more hardware level of indication. We try to get it back, but it's still taking time to work with the working group.
The video frame callbacks are more for post-session analysis rather than dynamic contents, because these go over not the WebRTC channels, but these go over WebSockets, which have their own problems. And if WebRTC has its way of communicating with the server about QoS, then this would be part of that. That way, server would know that a software fallback has happened. So I need to drop down the FPS or something to make it amenable for the client. And this happens on all machines because it's Chromium WebRTC player. It's shared on platforms.
And are you requesting camera microphone, like get user media specifically for that hardware information? That why? Or do you also want microphone and camera for other reasons?
We don't want actually we don't need it's because it's not bidirectional streaming for the most part. I think bidirectional is an extension of cloud gaming. But default is unidirectional streaming, which is server to client. So we don't really need the microphone and those permissions, but WebRTC has clubbed those things together for us to be able to access some of those callbacks.
Yeah, so your video showed you're requesting it. I think Alex is asking, is the only reason you're requesting it because you want those stats? Is that that's why? Or-
No, we have a like additional like extra service. We can send the voice to other player. We can send the video. That is extra. It's not
No, that permission prompt
Yeah,
that shows up.
yeah, we showed
We are
up.
requesting that.
Yes, yeah.
So we have that.
But that is not a mandatory required. Thank you for joining the session. And it's very open.